thank you, Lorin, for joining us so much. I'm glad that you were able to kind of engage us in this conversation of attachment styles and how it really impacts our relationships. I feel like there's a lot of memes you see out there, right? Like team no new friends and you know, protecting your peace and things of that nature. And I think that all of those have a place, but there's a curious part of me that's wondering, like, if it's one, protection, but then also how we relate with other people, how we attach to people, and if that's really the a factor that we need to really look at. Not just people. People are, people have their stuff. We all have our stuff, but also how we attach with people, how we relate with people also impacts our relationships for sure. So thank you so much. Take some time and let us know a little bit about you.
Okay. So my name is Lorin Burke, and I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Michigan. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I understand the impact of providing quality mental health services in the community. I understand the impact of trauma, both personally and professionally. Trauma and mental health do not discriminate based on social economic status, race, or gender. And I know the importance of seeking representation and seeing someone who you can trust as an individual who genuinely cares and understands what's going on with you.
Absolutely. I like what you said. Trauma does not discriminate. It does not discriminate. There's even a part of me that says sometimes for populations who are marginalized, it's even more susceptible, in those populations for sure. As we know in our experience with working in community mental health, that it can be very, very present there. So tell us about what inspired you to work in mental health and specifically in the area of infant mental health.
So infant mental health is the examining of healthy relationships through the parent-child relationship. Actually, I was just a behavioral health, substance abuse type of therapist. And I worked in a residential facility, and everything began to happen 6 and under. So I said, well, let me go there. Let me go there and see what's going on.
Right.
And based on that, I, in the process, because life happens, I had my daughter, and I said, whoa, what is that? What is that? And it was attachment, so I decided to research that and study that. And now I operate through a clinical lens of infant mental health, which is all about the bonding and nurturing and how well a child socially and emotionally develops, which is based off of their relationship with their parents.
So attachment for you became something that you saw through working with adults, that this was something that started under 6, like at a very, very tender age. And then even for yourself as a mother, saw that this attachment thing is powerful. It's truly powerful. Yeah, sure. So I want to kind of go through each attachment style. So let's start with the one that we all strive for, which is secured attachment, right? So tell us a little bit about what it is, how it's developed, a little bit.
Okay, so secure attachment, that's when growing up, you can easily accept somebody's shortcomings as an adult. They are not seeking perfection in another person. They have high levels of self-esteem, and they can make lasting relationships. They're comfortable with intimacy, autonomy, they're confident, and they're able to resolve conflict constructively. So, we all think about, how do we become this person, and it's all based on the ability to form this secure, loving relationship with your parents, So it starts from infancy or in early childhood, when the parent is nurturing. So the infant may cry, and, because that's the way that child or the infant knows how to communicate. They
Right.
don't have language like how we have. So, when a baby cries, then it's for a reason. So the mother or the caregiver responds to that baby, the baby is not able to self-regulate their own emotions, and the parent is bigger, wiser, and stronger, so they may hold that infant and rock them or soothe them in some type of way. And this is how trust develops. If I
Mm,
cry and my caregiver responds to me, now I can trust that my needs are going to get met.
mhm, mhm. And so having that secure trust in your caregiver then leads to having trusting relationships, but also too, because it's interesting that if a baby or infant is having their needs met often, and they're developing this trust within with the parent, that later on as an adult they don't have these, you said, high expectations, like demanding perfections from others. I think that's interesting because you would think if you're constantly giving the child and meeting their needs, that they would look for that and think that perfection or constantly having their needs met is something um, that they need, that they would require or look
Mhm.
for in a relationship. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then once you have that secure attachment with that parent, and now you feel it's safe to go out and explore other healthy
Mm,
relationships.
hmm.
So this person may not necessarily get the perfection that they're looking for, because everybody
Right.
has a different attachment style,
Right.
and that's just why why when dating it's good to ask questions.
Absolutely. Ask questions for sure. And so it seems like because they have that secured attachment, they're not looking for to have that need met in others.
Yes, because they're confident.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
confident, they're self-reliant, they feel self-insured, assured. They know what a loving relationship is because their caregiver gave it to them.
Mm. So if I'm a parent, say I'm expecting, and I want to have a secure attachment with my children. I want them, one, to be able to trust me, to know that I'm a safe space, and to be able to have healthy relationships later on in life. What do I need to do in order to ensure that happens?
Well, I would first say I'll examine my own attachment style. How were you parented?
Mm. Ooh.
Did your parent get what they need when they were expecting you? What's your thoughts about motherhood? What is this
Mm,
pregnancy like for you?
mm,
You know, I may go in and I even ask the parent, what um what did you just decide as far as the name of the baby? Where did that name come from?
mm.
Because it's meaning in a name.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to be calling this child this name for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
also, what I'm hearing you say is that it didn't start with you, right? So sometimes we as mothers, we take on a lot of responsibility for the health and mental health of our child. And and so as a mother, if I was expecting, you would tell me to, one, take some inventory to see what I received, because how what I received is going to directly impact what I give my child.
Absolutely.
Mhm,
Absolutely. I would think about, or I talk about, what's in the unconscious that's bleeding onto your parenting.
mhm, mm,
What is it that you're not even aware about? And
instinctual.
and as a mother, you might say, wow, I sound just like my mom, or I sound just like my dad. And that might have been the person you did want to sound like.
Absolutely.
So in therapy, let's talk about that. Let's talk
Mm.
about how your childhood was.
And so a part of infant mental health, I'm hearing, it's like kind of releasing or uh, even providing some like healing from potential unhealthy attachment that was received, or unhealthy parenting that was received, to help to mold what a secured attachment looks like, and actually even giving tools to the mother or caregiver or partner to be able to provide that for the child.
Absolutely, because it's actually 4 attachment types. So,
Mm,
so we just went through a secure, but it's the
right.
other 3 are insecure.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
form and manifest themselves throughout your lifespan.
Yeah.
So it's really about understanding what attachment type are you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get to number 2. I'll let you pick which one are we do next.
So we're going to talk about anxious attachment.
Okay.
Which is kind of exactly what it sounds like. People with this attachment, they're very anxious or uncertain. They lack self-esteem. In early childhood, this is when a caregiver responds inconsistently to needs beyond food or shelter. So, you may have a parent and it's like, oh, well, they got a roof over their head, or, they get food in their stomach, or what do you have to cry about? What do you have to be angry about? So are you responding to your child's emotional needs? So the baby has the inability to self-regulate again, therefore they develop anxiety. Anxiety is fear, worry, because they don't know if their needs are going to be met. And that's not just the basic needs, that's their emotional needs. So the baby or child will start to disregard their own struggles and needs to maintain peace and keep the caregiver close by. So how often do we see this in relationships? You get that person and they're disregarding their own needs and they're appeasing the other person, and they have low self-esteem because they really want acceptance.
And is this where you feel like enmeshment comes in at times? I'm just curious.
Oh, yes, it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. And so this, even when you said anxious attachments, I was like, oh, it made me a little nervous just even hearing it. And I see this a lot oftentimes, because I think there's sometimes the thought that we don't want to cater to the child or give the child too much to spoil. And is that where you feel like this attachment style is really developed kind of out of that mindset?
Yes, or I'm thinking about, again, generational. Was this parent's needs being met when they were a child? Or again, I said earlier that mental health doesn't discriminate against social economic status. So you may get this working professional, and I'm providing you this not emotional need, but I'm providing you your food and your shelter. But then I don't know how to get on your level and really relate to you. In 6 and under, the basic language of kids is play. So are you playing with your child? Do you understand, your child, and are you delighting in being with your child?
Delighting. I like that word. So, and when you say get on their level, I'm imagining like actually getting on the floor, playing with the blocks, playing with the Legos, meeting them where they are to kind of let them know that their world is important, and
Absolutely.
that you're not so big that you're not afraid to meet them where they are, and you're seeing them in their world too. Yeah.
Because they are a little person. They have emotions and they have feelings. They just don't know how to express them. And again, in this attachment style, this child doesn't know how to even self-regulate. And they're looking for you to be bigger, stronger, and wiser to help them with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so people who have anxious attachment style, how can they turn the page? How can they turn the page to even develop more secured relationships or healthy relationships, and as an adult? So say I'm an adult and I have it, right? I have this. I realize that I put other people's needs before mine because I'm nervous that I'm used to my needs not getting met. And then number 2, I'm afraid that if I don't put their needs before mine, that there's no chance that I won't get any needs met. Right? And so how do we turn the page?
So I'm thinking about, first seeking a therapist,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
who can help you to learn how to establish personal boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and also being assertive,
Yeah.
and then in the context of that therapy session, that can become a secure relationship for you to
Yeah.
help you be able to have relationships with others, which also will help with your self-esteem.
Yeah. And then also, what I've seen even in the work that I've done with my clients as well is helping the client to really go to places within themselves that are younger, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
4, 5, 6 years old, and give them what they didn't receive, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's powerful, and I definitely agree. Therapy is very, very important and impactful, and can definitely be life changing for an individual to turn the page in their relationships and get their needs met in a healthy way. So definitely. So next, which attachment style we choosing next, Laura?
Avoidant. So
Uh,
avoidant attachment.
hmm,
So with avoidant, independent and freedom are more important than the feeling of intimacy.
mhm,
So these people can be either fearful or dismissive. They are
mhm,
not comfortable sharing feelings.
mhm,
They focus on their partner's minor flaws,
mm,
or they might fantasize about the ultimate relationship.
mhm,
They may lack empathy or
mm,
shut down and not communicate their feelings. Um, they may isolate themselves or present as if they don't care.
mhm,
They may think highly of themselves, but have a negative view of others. And this develops in early childhood again. So this is when the caregiver does not respond to the cries of the infant. The
mm,
caregiver may ignore the problems of the infant, and the infant learns that they cannot trust their needs to get met. So this parent may be strict and controlling,
mm,
or not be able to tolerate strong displays of emotions,
yeah,
expect their child to be independent and tough. When this child, they want support, but I'm just going to avoid the whole situation. I'm going to
mm,
avoid, and I'm going to be independent, and I'm going to fear intimacy because, I didn't get my needs met.
mhm,
So I'm thinking of again, how does this reveal itself when you meet an adult?
mm, yeah, yeah. It's almost for the avoidant. I'm thinking for a child with that has this avoidant attachment style. It is in a place where you see um, children, and it's even in the study, and it's a very familiar study back when we was like in undergrad. I'm sure you've seen it, where they have the children. They have, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 babies, right? And
Mhm,
they're responding to their parent being in the room with them, and then their parent leaving,
mhm,
and they watch how they respond outside and then
mhm.
internally as well.
Right.
And so this avoidant child, the child in this study, the parent left and didn't respond at all. The baby
Yeah.
kept playing, but internally, the heart was racing. They were becoming like, just, but not really showing any emotion here at all,
Mhm. Yeah.
and versus like the anxious would be like crying. They felt that the child was going to get their needs met, right? But with
Mhm.
the avoidance, just no emotion at all.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I see a lot where sometimes we focus a lot on boundaries, right, and setting boundaries. But with the avoidant personality or attachment style, it would be like like releasing those boundaries, like where this was someone who may have rigid boundaries, not letting anyone in, have almost keeping themselves in like a prison cell at
Mhm.
times, and isolation, and where isolation has become a way that they protect themselves from
Mhm.
others, because they're fearful of anybody coming into their life.
Yep. So, typically when I see this attachment style, I hear someone and they tell me, guess what? I don't like vulnerability. and it's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard
Yes.
to put yourself out there. So we dive into that a little bit. We
Mm-hmm.
explore it.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from? And I'm always diving into what's your relationship like with your mom or your primary caregiver, or
Absolutely.
if your grandparents raised you, what happened? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
What was going on? Because everybody has a story.
And,
Everybody has a story. And what we want to do is we want to form lasting relationships. We want to be close to others, but how do we do that?
yeah. Yeah. Especially when we're afraid. So it's like when you talked about that the attachment style, this attachment style looking for little things, right? In their partner and their friends. It's like trying to look for one reason not to be in this relationship, or not to can I get a reason to kick them out, right? Because they're just used to dealing with and managing everything internally. I'm often so curious about how much pain or how much internally they're dealing with, because they never really vocalize it. Never really vocalize it. That thinking about that child who's panicked that their parent is gone, but not even feeling safe to cry about it, because they know it's no use. It's no use to cry. Yeah.
Yep. And typically when I have someone with this attachment style or attachment, period, I ask them, what does feelings look like in their household? Do you label your feelings? Do you communicate? I feel sad about this, or I feel angry, because I see so many parents, they seek me out and they say, oh, well, this child has an anger problem. It's okay to be angry. Everybody gets angry. It's
Absolutely.
what you do with it. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
And then what are you modeling? What are you modeling to your child? How are you handling your anger?
Well, we know that anger is a protective emotion. It is a secondary emotion. So if we're seeing a lot of anger from a child, that means they don't feel safe to say I'm sad,
Absolutely.
right? Or I'm scared. And so it just presents as anger. And they don't have like you talked about, the emotional vocabulary to even call it out. I have a lot of clients sometimes, how do you feel about that? And they'll start telling me what they think. They'll start telling me about the circumstance. And
me too.
And I'll
Let's go back to the feeling. Let's go back to that feeling. You never told me what the feeling was. You never
told me how that made you feel. Because there seems to be a part of them that has detached them away from their feelings, and oftentimes it's in a time where they don't even remember, because it happens at such an early age. That's it's truly powerful. All right, so the last one is a heavy one. I'll let you go for it.
Okay, let me take my deep breath.
Yes.
So my last one is disorganized attachment. So people with this attachment style develops when the caregivers become a source of fear to the child. So this develops from the parent's consistent failure to respond appropriately to their child's distress. So guess what? Mom, I need help. And then you're not responding, this parent may be abusive or neglectful or punitive, or respond to the child in a frightening way. So as a result, the child will not have attaching behaviors. They will appear apprehensive in the presence of their caregiver. They have no sense of safety. Safety is the biggest thing we need, because you'll feel safe to express your emotions, and again, they are not able to self-regulate their emotions. They're too big for them. Their feelings are too big for them. So as an adult, the child may be self-reliant or distant in a relationship. They may downplay importance of intimate relationships. They want to belong. We all want acceptance, but they're afraid to let anyone in. The person who's supposed to who's supposed to love me, cause me harm. I'm scared of them. they have a fear that the people closest to them may hurt them, just like their parent did. And these individuals may display extreme confrontation, if
Yeah,
they feel threat, because again, anger can be a defense mechanism.
absolutely.
And they may not have any understanding of personal boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Because their boundaries weren't respected. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even thinking about for an individual who is thinking about a parent who's displaying some of these behaviors, it sounds like we don't understand sometimes how important managing our emotions is going to impact our children, you know,
Absolutely.
and how we respond to them.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
And,
And
and uh, I'm sorry. I
go
was
ahead.
just
No, no,
saying
no.
another thing we talk about and we haven't mentioned was trauma. You
Hmm.
know,
Absolutely.
has that parent experienced trauma? Because now if the parents that experience trauma, then their whole brain makeup is different. They're operating in
Hmm.
survival mode. And so you're
Absolutely.
parenting in survival mode. And what does that look like?
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know you have little people, so I am. I'm a fan of this movie Encanto, and I know you've probably seen it. Have you seen the movie?
I've seen the beginning part of it,
Okay.
and I didn't really get to enjoy it like I needed to because, again, I have a 7-year-old and she sung every song, and I'm like, "Are you gonna let me watch the movie or not?"
I got you.
So,
So whenever you get a moment, I know you have a little one under her. So whenever you get a moment to watch it, but when we talked about trauma, how it impacts the brain, the grandmother, she witnessed her husband being killed after giving
mm,
birth to to triplets.
okay,
So think about how that impacted her attachment to those children.
absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking, something that I learned, and it was like you can't grieve and fall in love at the same time.
Mm,
You know, so if I'm grieving and I have this baby, you know,
mm.
how am I going to fall in love? Because that's what attachment is. It's the act of falling in love, with this little one.
Lorin, Lorin, Lorin. Ooh, wow, wow, wow.
Mhm.
That's powerful. Um, she was in a place, and I think sometimes, often too. Let's we take it off of the character of a console, but also even for a mother to. Sometimes mothers are grieving their life before motherhood, right?
Absolutely.
And how that impacts their attachment to a
Hmm.
child. And so, for a child who has experienced trauma, abuse, very um, harsh parenting, punitive. You talked about screaming, yelling, where it it makes the child feel like I'm not safe. And this is that baby going back to that study who can play, who would, if the parent was in the room, could play independently, wouldn't even really pay
Hmm.
attention to the parent in the room at all. So they would know if they left or not because they're just used to being alone anyway. Like
Hmm.
they have learned to not look for it, to not
Absolutely.
even and um, when we're talking about how they show up as an adult, then their partner could feel like, wait a second, are you in this relationship or are you not?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I'm really hearing it's extremely important to know your partner's
Hmm.
attachment style, because sometimes you would take how they're showing up personally, and really it has nothing to do with you. It's absolutely
Absolutely.
nothing to do with you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I'm thinking about even as far as, um, if you are in a relationship and then, you're faced with y'all both have issues, but guess what? Y'all both are going to shut down and not
Mm,
communicate. How are we growing in a relationship if we're not talking about it?
right, right, right. Hmm. Hmm.
You know? So attachment, it sets the trajectory of every other relationship in your life.
Mm,
So awareness is key.
absolutely. To know for yourself, so you know how to adjust, how to heal, and how to learn what a healthy relationship looks like. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really hard. It's extremely hard for those who have experienced trauma, abuse, and even that avoidant attachment, as well as to be able to trust someone to meet your need, um, is it's a challenge. It's a challenge for someone, especially in adulthood, to be able to place where you get there, especially if your relationships have kind of reinforced it. And it's, of course, it's a cycle, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
attachment style, it's in the way you attach with people, it's going to reinforce that
Mm-hmm.
people won't be there for you, because you're going to look for it. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to look for someone and like, oh, okay, this feels comfortable for me. I know this person's going to leave, and I've done that, so I can deal with that. And so then that just reinforces that nobody's going to be there for me. Right.
Yeah.
So it's super important conversation. I think the more that we realize, sometimes we attach a lot of um, vocabulary vocabulary to what we're experiencing, and oftentimes it's starting at the very beginning. At the very
Yep.
beginning.
And I'm thinking about too, and just the significance of after you have a baby and deliver
Mhm,
that baby, how the doctors, they gently take the baby and put the baby on your stomach,
mhm,
and that's to
mhm.
promote attachment, that
Absolutely.
skin to skin contact,
Mhm.
and the
Yeah.
brain development. It's so good for the baby, or even breastfeeding or nursing. These are
Yeah.
all attached ways to attach, or
Mhm,
being able to understand the baby's cues. You know,
mhm,
these are all things that parents can look into to help their
mhm.
attachment, starting from infancy, starting
Yeah.
from the moment that the baby is born.
Mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to kind of talk too about when the child gets older, because I'm curious if there's healthy attachment at the beginning, and if things how that shows when the child becomes a teenager. Like, what does that look like, and or maybe if there's someone who comes in the middle of a person's life, right, of the
Mhm.
child's life, if there's a foster parent, a step parent, or bonus parent, and they're trying to attach with someone who is a teenager or was 8 years old, right?
Mhm.
How do they build that attachment at that age that's older?
So, what that question makes me think of is keeping the lines of communication open.
Mm, mhm, mhm,
So, typically, when a child gets to be a teenager, a lot of parents like to say, "Oh, well, they're very independent," and put their hands off of that
mhm.
child. But really, that child still needs you, although they are
Yeah.
a teenager.
Mhm,
So it is important to be approachable. It's important to be approachable and open and supportive, not have these extreme reactions when um, the child does come and tell you something. You
mhm,
know, I like to say it's no such thing as a perfect child. They all have behaviors. They all
mhm.
have behaviors. It's just you being able to have open lines of communication and be able to um, that child to seek comfort when something does go wrong.
Mhm. So again, managing your emotions, meeting that
Mhm.
child where they are. If the child is, I'm also hearing that if the child, when the child, and even if when the child does something or needs to tell you something, that you present in a calm manner. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that that there's not going to be a lesson that needs to be learned, or discipline that needs to happen, but still disciplining from a place where it's calm so that the child feels emotionally safe.
Yep. And as a parent, I really like to strongly encourage, you know, you to get a natural support. Is your
Mm,
natural support? Who is your safe base? What if
yeah.
it's not mom and dad? Do you have a best friend? Do you have somebody to bounce ideas or situations off of? Because it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Absolutely. It still takes a village to raise a child,
Mhm.
contrary to what is happening in the now. It still does. And I know we are so sensitive and so personal about how we raise our child or our children, and at the same time having a safe space to talk about it, having some ears to bounce some things off of, or maybe you never knows that person is experiencing or has experienced the same exact thing. And so having an open ear to hear what benefited them. And yes, every child is different. Every child and parent-child relationship is different. But you can sift out, right? Like what's what's may not apply, and take what could be beneficial for you. So what what would you want someone who's watching this to take away? What is like the grand takeaway? They missed everything and they're like, "Ah, I just still don't get it." What is the takeaway of attachment, and how important it is for how it impacts our relationships?
Early childhood matters.
Mm,
Early childhood matters. I
yeah,
see so many individuals and they jump right until, oh, when I was in high school or when I was 10 or I was 12, you
yeah,
know,
hmm,
looking into how you grew up matters.
yeah,
It's important. It's a whole story. This is your story, you know.
mhm,
So in my sessions, I like to empower, each person who meets me, tell me your story.
yeah,
This is your chance to have that safe place because nobody may have never set the room up for you to tell your story. And then what is
absolutely.
that like for you?
Mhm. There's a thought sometimes that I hear that, oh, I don't like to think about like what happened 10, 20 years ago and still impacted me today. Like it's almost like it's a personal flaw that
Hmm.
is occurring. It's just a reality. It's
Absolutely.
truly a reality that what we experience in our lives directly impact us. And it's
Hmm.
not a flaw. It's just a part of our humanity. It's a part of how we experience each other. And so
Hmm.
definitely early childhood matters. Absolutely. So Lauren, how can people find you? How can people connect with you?
Well, you can always visit my website. That's positivechangedetroit.com. I'm also on Facebook, Positive Change Counseling,
Yes.
and Instagram, Positive Change Detroit. It's my handle. Or you
Yes.
can call me at 313-356-6673.
Awesome, amazing. Thank you so much for joining me in this like powerful, powerful conversation. Hope it can help shift our relationships and help us to really learn the power of attachment. Help us do some self awareness work and look at ourselves and get a little curious, not be judgmental.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes these labels of, anxious, avoidant, disorder, it kind of can feel stigmatizing. So being gentle with yourself, knowing
Mhm.
again, it doesn't start with you, and that this is where you may not be at fault, right? But we are responsible. So it's like we are here now. So what do we
Mhm.
do? What do we
What
do?
do we
What do we
do?
need to what do we need to do? So thank you so much.
Thank you for
Uh,
having me.
yes, yes. And I appreciate you so much. And we may have to have you come back again, Lauren.
Okay, I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much. And you have a good one.
You too. Thank you.